All right, we left off last time with getting the car in front end service mode. If you haven't seen that video, you can go back and check that out. If you're doing any major work on the front side of your engine, you need to get down to like your oil filter housing, the exhaust manifold, any of that stuff. You really want to put your car in this mode. So my video on that is based almost entirely on the Mod Mini Channel's version of that. He does it in about 7 minutes. It took me 2 hours, but I still did it. And now I've got lots of access to the front of the motor. We're going to pick up from there on actually starting to disassemble to get down to taking the head off. We'll see how far I get today, but here we go. Let's see what we can do. All right, I'm going to start with taking off this, looks like a heat shield for the exhaust manifold. 3 10mm bolts across the top, 3 across the front. Let's see how it goes. I dropped it anyway. Still easier to pick up that way. So, of course, one of the reasons why this is going to take me forever compared to somebody who does this all the time is I'm going to stop now and I'm going to put the 6 bolts in a bag and I'm going to label them exhaust manifold, heat shield, just because this is all new to me. So I'm going to take a minute and label those. This probably seems like overkill to an experienced mechanic, but I am not an experienced mechanic. So to me, this is time well spent. This is bag number 7 of nuts and bolts and parts, and I'm going to call this exhaust manifold heat shield. And then just for one extra step of redundancy, on my notebook, which I am following very carefully, we're on section B, removing head. I'm going to go ahead and write the number of my bag of parts right next to that. Just one more way to double check myself, make sure I don't lose something. Next, I need to remove the O2 sensor, which is right there. I can see it, and I bought a special socket to do that. So I'm going to do that next. Okay, just to show you guys, here's that special socket for the O2 sensor. It's got this groove out the side of it so that I can slide it right over the line that goes into the O2 sensor. And boom, there it is. So, figure out what combination of extensions I need to get on that. All right, so that's like know-nothing mechanic greatest hits right there. I don't really know what I'm doing because I've never, touched an O2 sensor or anything. So I'm being very careful to not break these leads that go into it. But when I look in the manual or watch the video, it's like, remove O2 sensor, step whatever. And then it takes like 3 seconds. I just spent 10 minutes on that. But O2 sensor's out, so now I can move on. And what does that mean? Jeez. Let's see what's next. All right, I gotta get under the car. Gotta remove the downpipe from the tailpipe, and I gotta remove the heat shield. So I'm going under the car. I'm not really set up to record under there, so I'll just let you know how it goes. Okay, situation has been sorted out. This top front heat shield here, there was one more 10mm bolt, and I did know there were 4, but it looked like one was missing when I was down below, but it wasn't. It was actually, I was able to reach it from the top. So now that I've got all of those bolts out, I can pull this heat shield forward here, and now I can start, I can actually access these last couple here with a pretty straight shot. So I've got them all broke loose now. Now I'm going to run off through and zip them all off, and then this whole exhaust manifold header situation is just going to kind of lay forward off the front of the engine, including the manifold gasket. So that's where I'm headed now. It seems to take a variety of different length extensions to get through all this twisty exhaust manifold. Some of them are a nice straight shot, some of them are a little bit of a bag shot, but I think I can get to all of them pretty. I have to say, I'm kind of enjoying this. It's methodical and not too bad so far. Honestly, the worst part so far has been the damn plastic clips to get body trim and body panels loose. They're not mechanical in the sense of you don't just unscrew them. You have to break them to get them apart, and that's really frustrating. Just taking the nuts and bolts off so far has not been too bad. Some of the reaches have been kind of a challenge, but so far we're doing okay. Keeping things organized is definitely making me feel good, putting each piece in a bag and labeling it and stuff. So far I'm feeling okay about this. We'll see what I'm saying when I try and put it back together. Oh, I really enjoyed it. Did ya? This is certainly not meant to be a tutorial on how to do this, as much as it is an adventure in overcoming your fears. Learning how to do things yourself. There's a great satisfaction that comes from working with your hands and figuring things out that is unfortunately lost on a lot of people anymore. And even myself included sometimes. It's just easier to pay somebody to fix stuff. I don't like paying people to do stuff if I've got 2 hands and a brain and I can do it myself. Again, that's all philosophically fine until I go to put this thing back together and it doesn't work. But you know, for now I'm going to enjoy the zenness of this. As I'm freezing and my nose is running everywhere. But still, worse ways to spend the day. Time to get a little more creative for these last couple. I need a little more reach on that. I gotta say, the front end service mode thing makes a lot of sense now that I'm in here trying to work. It is tight even with that extra couple inches of space, but without it, I think that's one of those things where you could easily try to save yourself a few minutes or a few hours by avoiding that step and paying for it with time and frustration later on. All of them. I think that's all of them. So theoretically, I should be able to grab a hold of this exhaust manifold and pull it loose. But I can't because there's still two more down below. There's two 13 millimeters down below. I'm gonna go grab them. I hope I don't regret that. I don't think I will. All the ones I've watched, this stays in place and you can just work around it, but it's proven to be in the way already. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take the full heat shield out of the way. All right, so took a little wrestling with getting the exact right combination of extension and depth of socket and stuff, but I got the two 13s off the bottom, so the exhaust manifold is completely loose. Honestly, there's only the other end of like the sensor or something holding it in here. I could take the whole thing out. I don't need to. I'm just gonna lay it back and out of the way because I don't think we need to move it anymore. And then there is this heat shield that can come out. And it can also just kind of stay right there. So, there it is. There's the front side of the head exposed. Now, we're going to do a side quest at some point. I can now see all of the bolts that are required to take the oil filter housing off. And that is a notoriously leaky thing to happen to these cars, and the gasket in there just sort of turns to hard plastic after a while, and we have to go through all of that just to get to the bolts to get it off. So I don't want to do this again anytime soon. So at some point while the head's being worked on, we're going to do a side quest and we're going to pull that off and put the new oil filter housing gasket on. But that is the front side of the motor stage done. So I think we'll move on to the intake side. All right, so the next step, now that we've got the front side of the motor pretty well loose, I'm going to move to the back side, to the intake side. And the first thing I need to do is I need to unplug these two cam sensors and the mass airflow sensor. And this is a perfect opportunity for me to do some labeling because there are two cam sensors and they have the exact same plug. So right now it seems pretty easy because one's coming out of one side and one's coming out of the other, but I don't want to count on that later. So I'm going to mark one with one color tape, one with the other. Again, I'm just trying to idiot-proof the reassembly process. So I'm going to go ahead and mark these up with some tape before I take anything apart. All right, so now I've got to disconnect these two cam sensors. I'm going to disconnect this mass airflow sensor back here. I'm going to mark each end of them with colored tape just to, again, make it easy. It's so cold in the garage right now that I couldn't get the tape started, so I went ahead and did that off camera so you didn't have to watch me. Looks like you're trying to get a roll of toilet paper started. But anyway, I got them peeled back now, so I'm going to go ahead and just wrap a little bit of colored tape around each end of stuff that's getting disconnected. And even though it's probably super obvious to somebody else where they go, I don't know about you, but I have certainly always tried to remember stuff like that. Just go, oh, it's going to be obvious. And then who knows when this is going back together? How long is this head going to be out? It could be quite a while. So I'm just going to go ahead and future-proof against my future forgetfulness. Because if there's one thing I've learned about myself, I can't remember what it is. So, there we go. This one's probably a little bit more obvious because it's all by itself over here, but why not follow the procedure all the way through? There we go. Okay, one more breadcrumb on the trail. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and get those unplugged. Now, I have no idea how these come apart, so I'm gonna very carefully try and figure that out right now. Definitely unplugs, but I don't know how. Screwdriver goes under the little tab that protrudes on the left side, lifts it up off of the lock, and should, theoretically, pop right off. Okay, there's those. Honestly, when I was getting ready for this, there's a couple things I was most afraid of. Electrical connectors. I know it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but there's just so many different kinds. And even on this car, there's like 10 different ways that they clip together. And of course, I don't want to break something expensive or complicated. So these have made me a little bit nervous. I literally just broke the tab on that one. So, but it looks like it's still gonna lock when it goes back together. And this is why I was afraid of this kind of stuff, especially in the cold like this. But I'm just gonna try and be really gentle and not do that too many times. So my camera died during my epic battle to get this snorkel apart. I'm not sure how much of it got, but I was able to get this whole snorkel out, this sort of airbox thing that sits here, and then this, supposedly now, will just lift up and out of here. So let's see if it does. Good to know. There's two mounting pins that go into these two rubber bushing kind of things. That's what holds this down, just compression. So now the whole airbox is out of the way. Some kind of vacuum tube. We're going to go ahead and wrap that with tape. Now if you want riveting YouTube content, you can watch me try to start a roll of frozen electrical tape. It'll really keep you on the edge of your seat. Oh God. I think I'm getting towards the end of my day today. I'm just about running out of time. Unfortunately, I only have about 1 day a week to work on this, so I wanted to get as far as I could today, and you know, see how it goes. This is horrible. Nobody wants to watch that shit. Okay, there's this breather tube right here. I've watched 3 different tutorials on this job, and all 3 people said, careful, this hose is brittle. So I'm going to be very, very careful trying to get this off. It's got a spring clip. Squeeze both sides. Again, here we are in clip hell, where I have no idea how this clip actually works. Okay, good, that wasn't so bad. This plastic looks like it might actually be cracked already. So, I don't think that's going to affect anything. Definitely want to be careful. This is definitely broken right here. Not badly, just a corner cracked off of it. We're just going to set this breather hose to the side. All right, well, it's actually the following weekend now, and it looks like what happened was the last couple steps I did in front of a dead camera. So I had to quit anyway, just a few steps after the last clip, so I'll just catch you up. I think the last thing we caught on camera was getting the snorkel and stuff out of the way. So the next step after that was there is a little ground strap that we disconnected off of the front of the block here. Just a 10 mil bolt. Went ahead and took that off. Actually, mine was an 8 mil on top and 10 mil on the bottom. And then I took the spark plug cover off and took the coil packs off. That's actually super easy. Just a couple little screws. You take the plastic lid off, and then your spark tubes just kind of, or your coil packs just kind of pop right out. They just lift right out of there. And then the other thing that we did was I disconnected the fuel line, and I'm going to grab the camera here and show you where that's at. And then we're going to pick up fresh again by getting into the part that's a little more intimidating. We're going to start actually getting inside the motor here soon. The next step for me is to take off the valve cover. And my cam alignment tool showed up in the mail this week. And I got my fingers crossed that it's the right one, because if it's not, this will be a short video until I get the right one ordered, because I can't go any further until I lock the cams in place. So I'm going to show you what I did with the fuel line last week, and then we'll pick up with taking the valve cover off. So here we go. Okay, so here at the back side, we can see this is our fuel rail right here, and our fuel line comes into it. Our fuel line comes into it right here. And the trick was, you push on this little plastic sleeve, you push this way to the right while adding pressure to the left here. And that sort of unlocks it. Then you just boop, pop this off, a little bit of gas squirts out. And now your fuel line is disconnected from the fuel rail. So now let's go ahead and take off the valve cover. I'm gonna add, before I take the valve cover off, I'm gonna get the shop vac in here and take care of whatever this is. It's looking like we must have had a little critter friend living down in here, because there's a lot of, looks like walnut dust or something. So it's either that or somebody walnut blasted this once upon a time and left a bunch of walnut shells in here. So I think we're just gonna go ahead and get the old suck-o-matic and suck that out of there. The 2 tools that I thought were going to be really handy are being really handy. This has been a lifesaver. That little magnet grabber, I really enjoy that thing too. So now, I think I got them all, and I'm gonna come over here, right here to the corner where I know there's not a valve cover gasket, and just start to try and work this loose and make sure I got them all. I may have missed one, so let me just do an inspection here and see what we get. It's kind of looking like all of them. All right, here we go. Ta-da! There it is. Interesting. Looks like one of the spark tubes got left behind. There it is, our first look at the inside of the engine. That is pretty exciting. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. Not that I know what I'm looking at, but I don't see anything obviously wrong. The oil looks pretty clean. Nothing looks pitted or overly worn, so. All right, so the next thing that has to happen is I have to lock these cams in place. And I need to do that by getting a big bar or ratchet, socket wrench on the main pulley, on the crank pulley, and rotate it around until my cams are oriented correctly. So I'm gonna figure that out. I'll be right back. And here is my eBay special cam alignment kit. I'm really hoping I got the right one. It was hard to find one for the N16, but this one did say it would fit on the N16. They were nice enough to pack it with 0 instructions, but I think I get the basic idea. These are my flywheel lock tools, so we're gonna go down and figure out where that happens, and we lock the flywheel in place. And then these are the 2 plates that will go across the cams and lock those in position so they can't move during disassembly. So that's what I got. I think it was about 80 bucks on eBay. It'll probably be for sale shortly. All right, really hard for me to show you, but this little pin that's sticking down there, that's the handle of the flywheel lock tool. There's 2 holes on the side of the transmission. It's the upper one that you stick this thing into, and it locks the flywheel from moving. And I kind of took my socket that was on the crank pulley and just kind of worked it back and forth to make sure that it was in there. It seems like it's in there, so I think I got it. So the cam lock tool works, by my understanding, by holding these 2 cams in place and keeping them from rotating while this is all being disassembled. And we're going to lock also the flywheel down below. In order to do that, we need to get the cams set so that this little protrusion right here has 3 flat sides and a round side. And we want the 3 flat sides to be the ones that we see with the round side facing down. In order to do that, we have to rotate this camshaft, and we'll do that by putting an 18mm socket on the crank bolt down below and moving it. So I'm going to go do that, and you can actually see this move into place. And boom, right there. There they are. So now I'm going to try and get the pin to lock the flywheel in. All right, so I've got the flywheel pin thing in place now. And before I have to actually lock the cams on top, there's a bunch more stuff that I'm going to do, which might turn out to be the only thing I can do today because it's looking like the top part I can't figure out how it fits. None of the holes line up. So I don't know if I got the wrong kit or what, but before I have to worry about that, I've got the flywheel pin in place. That is working. So now I'm going to go ahead and start disconnecting some other stuff. The next goal is going to be, what is the next goal? I'm going to take the intake manifold off. So we're going to get in behind here and start working on the intake manifold, pulling the fuel injectors out. So that's where we're headed now. All right, so the flywheel pin is in place. That keeps that from turning. The next step is not to actually lock the cams up on top, but to continue disassembling. So I'm going to work on getting the intake manifold off now. I might get to the point where we lock these cams and have to quit because just looking at it and laying the pieces on there, none of the holes line up. So even though it said it was for an N16, it doesn't look like it is. So I don't know, we'll figure that out in a little bit. But right now I'm going to work on keeping going. I'm going to get the intake manifold taken off and the fuel injectors pulled out. So that's what we're going to do next. All right, so I'm having a hell of a time finding these there's two T30 nuts or bolts on the back side of the fuel rail that I can't see because they face back towards the front of the car. So I actually was just using the phone and a light, and I was able to see them that way. So I've got my extension on one of them right there. So that's how I did that. Now let's see if I can get them out. Okay, with only a ridiculous amount of effort, we managed to get the two little nuts off the back, or bolts off the back of this fuel rail. That falls into the file of, I don't know how the hell they're going to go back in, since I could barely see to get them out. But, you know, that bridge is coming up later on. So now we're supposed to be able to pry this fuel rail right loose from the back of the head here. So watch me do that. Apparently a little bit of pressure. Firm but gentle is what I read. So here we go with firm but gentle pressure. It definitely helps if everything is made out of plastic. It feels like it wants to break at any moment. And it's cold. And I don't know exactly what I'm doing. Oh, that's good. Heave-ho. There they are. Gas running everywhere, just like we wanted. There's the fuel rail. It looks like all of our injectors stayed behind. So, you gotta work on pulling them out. Good news is all that walnut grit helps suck up some of the fuel, so that's a win. Okay. So, according to the pros, I should be able to get a hold of these injectors down towards the bottom. Give them a little oomph and they should pop right out. And so they do. Just a little bit of finagling. It will work right out of there. Just being careful not to crush anything. Now it's probably a good time to mention that I've recently discovered Vice Grip Garage, and so it's probably working into my vocabulary because these are the go juice squirters, I believe is what they would be called. Or something like that. First one came out pretty nice. It's just a matter of getting a technique figured out here. Where to grab without hurting them. There we go. As always, it's easier than I thought it would be. Okay, there's our 4 injectors out. Okay, now